You guys know from each other?
Good afternoon, I'm David Kleeman.
And I'm Stephen Gass.
I wanted to start with something that Carter just said, talking about the tools of play. And we're going to be talking a lot about the tools of play and how they've changed over time. I also watched a video last night in which John Barber from Leapfrog was talking about the nutrition of education. And that's where we are today, is at that intersection of the tools of play and the nutrition of education. We've noticed, as we were asked what we wanted to talk about to start off the Toys Learning and Play Day, we noticed two continuums that run through the toy fair. One is how classic toys evolve over time, and the other is how classic play patterns, or essential play patterns, are changed or not by the evolution of toy and game technology. And what we thought we would do is go through with you some of the thinking by looking at what it takes to achieve iconic status in the toy world, and then propose what, to us at least, is the modern day equivalent of the iconic toy, address what's gained, what's lost, and what's simply different. We're going to ask you, we're going to engage you in this. We're going to ask you to foresee classic status for the modern version, whether you think it's going to happen or not. We're not in the least, as Carter was just saying, we're not talking about one or the other, about digital overwhelming physical or anything like that, where they're going to exist side by side, they're going to do different things, they're going to supplement each other, they're going to support each other. But obviously physical toys have a very strong presence right now, as the Rainbow Loom gives evidence.
Okay, so we're going to start with a little interactive question. Just with a show of hands, what do you think it takes to become a toy legend, to end up in the Toy Hall of Fame? A, intensive design and technology integration. B, a product that encourages learning and creativity and discovery. Really good connections, or a lot of great distribution. All those who think it's A that's going to be the thing that catapults you into the Toy Hall of Fame, show of hands. B, C, there you go, D. Interestingly enough, when we look at the toys that have made it through over the last, I think it's about 20 years that it's been done, the through line is all of these products, at the end of the day, encourage learning, creativity, and discovery.
Before we get into the specific toys that we want to talk about, we want to talk about what it is that the Toy Hall of Fame considers the criteria for induction into the Hall of Fame. We're going to be presenting, as I said, some of the classic toys, the honored toys, and whether today's equivalent are going to be entering that pantheon. So we've got iconic status, and in the digital world it may be a little too early to figure out what has achieved iconic status. They want something for the Toy Hall of Fame that's not a flash in the pan, that's not going to come and go quickly, but that's going to have lasting value. And I think we still are a few years away from really understanding that. Discovery. We're going to spend a lot of time on discovery as we look at individual toys. That's where we're really going to focus on the learning and the play elements. Does the new toy carry forward the learning attributes of the progenitor that it came from? And also, does it add elements that enhance the kind of learning that we need for today's 21st century world? And also, does it make appropriate use of the technology behind it? Is the technology there just because it can be, or is it there because it adds something? And then innovation. Worth considering whether the new toys and the games that we'll discuss are play changers. Do they change the essence of play, or just add to what's been there before?
All right, so this is another little interactive game. Just with the shout-outs and no Googling, I've broken some of these classic toys, some of these legends, into categories to see what you think actually has achieved that status. So category leaders, these tend to be large brands, iconic names, those kind of things. Anybody want to take a guess? I'm sorry? Yubi? Snoopy. Snoopy. Any others? Barbie. Any others? Lego. Let's see. Barbie, Hot Wheels, Lego, Crayola, Duncan. Monopoly, Candyland, and Play-Doh Erector set. This is not an exhaustive set. Traditional toys and games. Anybody? Balls.
Stick.
Puzzles.
Blocks.
Blocks. Let's see.
Box.
Let's see. Yep. Teddy bear, baby doll, ball, marbles, dominoes, playing cards, checkers, chess, alphabet blocks. Technology, digital stuff. Anybody? Herbie.
Oregon Trail.
Game Boy.
Wii.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Interestingly enough, the only two pieces of technology in the Toy Hall of Fame to date are two platforms. If you think about it, really were game changers. They really did bring a new play pattern, as it were, into the home with the Atari 2600 and Nintendo Game Boy. All right, and then beyond classic, just like the ones that tug at your heartstring. Anybody? I heard it from you.
Stick.
Stick. Anybody else?
Box.
The box. Yeah, and a personal favorite, the blanket.
That was a controversial one.
Okay. All right, so we're going to start with the stick. The stick is probably the greatest icon of imaginative play. It's a sword, it's a magic wand, it's a scepter, it's a phaser, it's a fishing pole, and it can be all of those things in the same afternoon, which makes it sort of interesting. The other thing that's interesting about the stick, it's a symbol, and why that's important from the learning point of view, when kids sort of get that something can symbolize something else, they can start to then apply these symbolic systems to unlock a whole lot of other things. Just think about the very complex system of numbers and the even more complex system of letters and words. Pretend play becomes very powerful because it lets that kid experiment with a wide range of ideas and exercise a lot of skills. The language skills, this is awesome. Pretend play is probably the best place to practice the use of the subjunctive. I want to be the prince. And you can be the princess. Use of future tense. Then we'll sing the pony song. We're naming things, we're describing things, we're making things up. Wide range of social emotional stuff, whether you're pretending by yourself or with others. And then the basic imagination skills. That stick can become anything. The other sort of interesting thing that educators particularly like about imaginative play is it helps a kid to delay gratification. When you are in that role, I am playing the princess now, and you come out of role, someone's going to check you on it. No, you can't do that. So it's a lot of impulsive stuff starts to get controlled by this larger framework that the kids are making to take themselves forward. So, the E-stick. Interesting stuff here. What we do see is we've added bells and whistles, we've added sound effects, we've added a lot of sparkle. There are even augmented sticks where you can wave the wand over a book and literally magic, in quotes, happens on the screen. So the question, and again, this is one of the interactive things, the question for us is, even though these digital versions are catalysts and sort of nice dramatic props, are they enough to become toy legends? So, show of hands, do we think a digital stick or wand, or even the augmented wand, is going to end up being lasting, or is this just a variation? Legend? Not a legend. All right, the stick wins.
Let's move on then to the ball, another one that is a very old toy, possibly almost as old as the stick, but not quite. And also one of the most flexible toys for learning. We begin to play with balls, as you see here, at about 3 months, rolling ball back and, or not rolling ball back and forth at that age, but just as a tactile experience. As you go into toddlerhood, rolling a ball back and forth, but it's a toy that grows with us. We use it throughout our lives, even adults play with balls. It also is one that sits comfortably at the intersection of toy and game. The ball itself is a toy, but it's incorporated into all kinds of different kinds of games. And it's also an important part of both open-ended and closed-ended play. There are ball games where you invent the rules as you go along, where you just toss the ball back and forth, where there's no ultimate goal, and there are ball games where there are a very distinct set of rules. Physical play, it ranges from early on gross motor skill to as you start to learn the games that go around it, the motor skills become much more fine. Social play, as I say, from that first rolling a ball back and forth between baby and parent, to learning to be part of a team. Kids organized around ball games and learn how to play together. I think you could even include the ball in the development of cognitive and thinking skills, as you think about it, from game strategy to physics. So what would you say is the updated classic? This is the one among, I think this is the only one among our examples where the toy itself is equipped with the technology rather than being an entirely transformed version. As I wander the floor here, I'm actually seeing a lot more areas where technology is being integrated into a ball, but this one is really the one that's led the category for some time now, the Sphero. And an e-ball like this calls on a different kind of skill than the traditional ball. In its primary way of playing, in sort of the main way that the Sphero is played with, the ball, instead of the primary object, becomes the secondary object. It's moving, in some ways it's more like a labyrinth or the labyrinth game that we used to have, or a radio-controlled car. There is some worry about putting a screen between the child and the ball. That ages it up maybe a little bit. It's not as easy to play until later on. They need to be able to control the screen instead of controlling the ball. The early gross motor skills that we saw are less emphasized, for example, than the fine motor skills of the touch screen, the tilt, the swipe, the tap. But still, there can be open-ended and closed-ended play with this. Just roll the ball, or there are third-party apps for Sphero that create some really interesting program games. Technology also offers the possibility for transformation. Games for direct play with the Sphero. So there are times when actually the ball is between you and the child and the screen, as opposed to the screen being between the child and the ball. I was playing one yesterday where you have to twist and turn and move the ball in order to follow color patterns. They call it the ball evolve. That's one of the slogans for Sphero. But does it lose some of the essence of what made the Ball of Hall of Fame classic, that direct touch, or does it add something new that's ultimately going to make it destined for the Hall of Fame? Hall of Fame? Raise hands. Looks like, once again, the original ball fits in.
The construction suite, Lego, Tinker Toys, Lincoln Logs, all of them in the Hall of Fame. Before I get into this, just some really terrific trivia. Lego is an adjective, never to be used in the plural. It's not a noun. Legos, playing with your Legos, is an incorrect use. Lego bricks, Lego buildings, Lego construction sets. Tinker Toys, celebrating its 100th anniversary this toy fair, first introduced 1914, where it was a total failure. And Lincoln Logs, show of hands. Lincoln Logs, its name, how many people think its name comes from Abraham Lincoln, or was informed by Abraham Lincoln? Show of hands? All right, this one's awesome. It's actually Frank Lloyd Wright. Frank Lloyd Wright's son created Lincoln Logs, inspired by the Imperial Hotel in Japan, which was built out of a series of beams with notches designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, whose given middle name was Lincoln. Very good.
That's very good.
So, construction toys. There really aren't a whole lot of skills that don't get pushed when kids are playing with construction toys. There's the motor and coordination skill of actually manipulating these blocks, putting them together. You know, from a very, very early age, kids can stack. You know, they can go up, which is why you see a lot of tower play, you know, up to the age of around 2. Then, all of a sudden, when they can coordinate different sides of that cube or that box, and they can go to the left, to the right, as well as up and around the corner. There's more spatial awareness and those kind of skills that are put to play. The imaginative skills. What's probably among the list of genius things that Lego did was introduce characters into the play. So in the early days, kids brought their characters, and then when Lego said, here, we're going to make them work in this ecosystem, things took off, because now that whole piece of storytelling is part of this constructive play zone. Kids can build anything, houses, towers, castles, bridges, you got it. And then with the characters, there's the whole language, social, emotional set of skills that are called on. And then, because STEM is de rigueur, although if you read the Times this morning, there's some issue with the new standards in New York State, construction play absolutely pushes the envelope with math and science, because at the end of the day, it is about size and shape and relationships. So, digital building. This is really interesting. Between Mindstorms and Minecraft and a wide range of things where kids are actually building things that do things, what appears to us to be happening in the digital construction place is that other than leaving some motor skills on the proverbial table, the level of problem solving, planning, and sort of bigger challenges has been sort of blown open. So with that, do we think, and it doesn't necessarily have to be something we pictured, can we anticipate something from digital construction to find its way to the Hall of Fame? That might not exist yet, but as a category, as a game changer, does it have potential?
Question. As a digital screen-based thing or three-dimensional with the added electronics?
We're not defining digital as only screen-based, because there's some screen-based stuff that can be wildly immersive.
We've got little bits
like Minecraft. So either. Interesting. Cool.
Creativity tools. I talked before about how the ball is very old. I think we could probably debate which came first, the stick or the creativity tool, and they probably evolved simultaneously, because one of the first uses of a stick was probably to make a drawing in the dirt or on a wall. But I'm going to group for the moment Play-Doh and crayons. There are similarities with construction toys that Stephen was talking about, but probably even more creative flexibility with the creativity toys. If we didn't have creativity toys, we'd have to invent them, because people just have too many ideas and too much imagination not to be able to let that out somewhere. These tick the boxes again on almost every aspect of play and learning together. Fine motor skills, tactile experience, imagination, and also role play. So what are the digital equivalents? We've got a really wide range of digital creativity toys now. Drawing and playing, drawing and painting apps, there's a Play-Doh ABC app, and emerging in this space is the 3D printer, which you see down there on the left, which is really allowing kids to let their creativity come out and then turn it into something tangible and substantial. The 3-doodler pen as well, think about that. But I think the key is to acknowledge that these are fundamentally different from physical creativity tools. This is a case where one evolved from the other, but I think we have to accept that they are not the same experience. That we all dreamed when we were growing up of either the bottomless box of crayons, or the box of crayons where the one that we really wanted to play with wasn't broken all the time or didn't wear out before all the others. The tub of clay that never dried out and couldn't be played with anymore. So the ability, these have that bottomless quality to them. They have that endless quality. You can incorporate many different tools into the same app. They also have the ability to incorporate multimedia. You can mix different kinds of drawing, different kinds of painting, as well as stickers. And they add the element of easy sharing across distance, that kids can make what's in their minds and then they can share it with parents, with grandparents, with friends in a fairly easy way. But there's not the tangible, the sensory play that comes with crayons, with clay, with things like that. You can't feel the crayon in your fingers, you can't remember that wet feeling of finger paint or the squishiness of clay. And so you do lose something there. there was an interesting, the Play-Doh app. You know, we all have that tangible feeling of Play-Doh. The Play-Doh app was reviewed by Children's Technology Review that talked about how it was more directive and closed-ended than Play-Doh itself. So here's a case where I think we have to ask, are individual toys from within this category headed for the Hall of Fame, or will it head there as a category? What do you think? Are there individual toys that you think are headed? Create robots.
Sure.
Yep. Yep. So I mean, we're at the beginning of the evolution of this category. Robots can fall somewhere in between these two last categories. I think, in my mind, I think we'll definitely see things from this category head for the Hall of Fame ultimately. I think the 3D printer is probably the best candidate at the moment.
The baby doll. And this is a distinct category from the fashion dolls. What's interesting about doll play, not unlike the creativity tools David was talking about, doll play is also, dolls are open, it's an open-ended material. That doll can be played with again and again and again, and in different ways each time, which makes it a pretty interesting plaything. Doll play starts, true doll play starts at about 2 years old, when the baby can feed and nurture and take care of and sort of model their own life, you know, and project it onto the baby. Doll play helps to exercise fine motor, dressing the baby, feeding the baby, gross motor, rocking the baby, carrying the baby, cradling the baby, self-care skills, cleaning, and all that kind of business. And all the language skills that come with imposing your life on the baby with what the baby's going to do and what they're going to do together. So, digital dolls. This is also one of those curious categories. There are clearly there's a class of digital baby dolls that are somewhat robotic. There's the Furby class where there's an awful lot of caretaking, and then there are countless sort of what I refer to as almost like dress-up baby games, which seem to fall more in the category of paper doll play, which is fine in and of itself, but may not bring all the other things that fill out doll play. Great. So with that, a digital doll or robotic doll destined? Yep. Possible. Yeah, I think so too.
We're going to have to rush through the last bit because we've got less than a minute here. So I just want to propose that the Easy Bake Oven is a learning toy that adds to role-play learning, but also to following instructions and to a lot of experimentation. All of us who played with them made the kits first, made the mixes first, and then we started experimenting with what else you could make. In the digital version, I think you could talk about some literal ones, like some of the food apps that you see at the bottom here, but those are more about decoration. They're almost more like creativity apps. I think maybe where we find the closest analog to the Easy Bake Oven is in things like Toca Lab or in virtual chemistry sets, where again you're getting that sense of experimentation and mixing and trying different things, but in the end you don't get to eat what results.
All right, and the venerable cardboard box. You know, this one, in some ways, it's a head scratcher because there's not there's no color, there's not a whole lot of texture, it doesn't make any noise, it doesn't do much, but yet it has been a pretty compelling play space for kids. Maybe it's the comfort of that little space, maybe it's the fact that they can schlep it wherever they want by themselves, maybe it's just, I'm so big in this little space, hard to tell. But as we thought through, you know, is there a digital version of the cardboard box? I think this is sort of, yeah, I don't know whether this is thinking outside the box or inside the box, but you know, let me sort of wrap up our presentation by borrowing a line from an early Barbie campaign. We kids can do anything, right, Boxy?
Thank you.